understand what is a protocol. When I say protocol, protocol is a set of rules. When I say protocol, protocol is a set of rules. Whenever I say protocol, protocol is a set of rules that one has to obey to communicate between the systems. If two systems want to communicate with each other, if two servers want to communicate with each other, exchange their data, they need a protocol. Protocol is a set of rules that both the parties are accepting to obey to communicate with each other. Protocols are the set of rules which both the parties are accepting to communicate with each other. Now, what are the different types of protocols we have? HTTP, SMTP, FTP, TCP, IP, Telnet. Like this, we have different category of protocols. So, out of these, popularly used protocols are HTTP, SMTP, FTP. These are the three popularly used protocols. So, what are the protocols we have? Protocol is a set of rules. Whenever I say protocol, protocol is a set of rules. Protocol allows the two computers or systems to communicate over the network. What are the popular protocols that we have? HTTP, SMTP, FTP, TCP, IP. So SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. If you want to send any email from your application to any external devices or external application, then we need to go for SMTP. But in the Salesforce, we have a built-in SMTP. That is the reason while you are sending the outbound email services or while you are receiving the inbound services, we are not setting up any SMTP. Generally, if you want to go for sending any email or receive any email, then we need to go with the SMTP protocol, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. In the Salesforce, we have a built-in functionality because of which we are not using this SMTP protocol. Otherwise, any application who want to send the message from their system to other system, email from their system to other system, they generally use SMTP protocol. Now, we are going for FTP. If you want to transfer the files across the network, then we go for FTP protocol. Then we have TCP and IP. Okay. Now, protocol is a set of rules. Fine. Apart from protocol, what else you need to communicate between the systems? So, we need to understand three more terms. That is URI, URL, and URL. We need to understand three more terms. One is URI, URL, URN. Sometimes the people say URI, sometimes the people say URL. So what is this URI? What is that URL? What is that URL? Now, look at this example. Look at this example. If I have URL, this is my URI, Uniform Resource Identifier, URI. Your URL and URN are a subset of URI. We have URI, URI. So, in the URI, we have URL or your URI can be any one of the URL or it can be any one of the URL. Your URI can be any one of your URL or it can be any one of your URL. So URL is a URL. URN is a URI. URI can be a URL or URL. What is this URL? What is this URL? What is this URL? What is this URL? Now, the first one, URL. When you say URL, look at the format. What is the meaning of that URL? URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. When you say URL, generally our URL will be in this format. What is the format of your URL? HTTP. Now I give satishmaila.com/integration/HTTP nodes. So this is what I give. When you say URL, URL includes your protocol plus a resource location. URL includes protocol with resource. URL includes protocol with your resource. Protocol followed by your host name, port number, and your resource. The path of your resource. The path of your resource. So let us look at this example. Right. Now I am going for URL. When you say URL, what is the format of your URL? Look at the structure. Your URL is going to be protocol, host name, port number, slash, path of your file. So your URL is going to be protocol, host name, okay, your port number, path of your file. Your host name sometimes may be name of the server, or it can be IP address of your server. Sometimes it can be a name of your server, or it can be a IP address of your server. URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. The syntax of the URL is protocol, host name, port number, path of your file. When it's a protocol, we can go with any one of the HTTP, FTP, or your SMTP, or Telnet, or ISP. You can go with a number of protocols. Then when you say host name, your domain name service, DNS name. The DNS name can be like what? www.satishmala.com, www.capitalfo.com, or satishmala.com, like you got salesforce.com. When you say salesforce.com, are you giving www.salesforce.com, or are you giving https:// salesforce.com? You are giving login.salesforce.com. You are not giving www. All this stuff, right? So it can be name of your server, depends upon what type of DNS you are following. Then, or sometimes it can be a IP address of your server. Sometimes it can be a IP address of your server. Then port. Every server, every protocol, when you are using a protocol, every protocol by default has one port number. Every protocol by default has one port number. So, when two systems are trying to communicate, let me give you. If two systems are trying to communicate, I have system 1, system 2. When two systems are trying to communicate, the systems have some doors here. The system has some doors. So, if the system want to communicate, this want to transfer a data to third party. You want to transfer a data to third party. You want to transfer a data to third party. The two systems want to communicate. Two systems want to communicate and transfer the data. Now, every door that we have here is called a port number. Every door that I am using here is called a port number. This is the port number 80. This is the port number 443. This is the port number. Like this we have port. Now, if the system want to communicate with the system, whichever the door this person is opening, the same door the other person also has to open. Then only the message will transfer. If this person is opening this door, this person also should open the same door. Then only they understand what exactly they are trying to communicate. If this person opens this door, the other system also should open the same door. So when I say door here, we call it as a port number. If you open the port number 80, the other party also will receive the response on the request on what? Port number 80. If you are using 444 port number, the other party also will receive the message on 443. If it is sending a message on 1521, other system also receive the message in 1521. So from which port I am sending, from which port you are listening. Now if I am sending a message from port number 80, you also should open a port number 80 to receive the message or to understand my message. Right? From which port number I am communicating, on which port number you are responding. Right? So the port number. By default, we need to provide a port numbers. In the URL, we need to provide a port number. But if you open the website, we never see, most of the times we never see port numbers. Let me say www.satishmala.com/integration. We are not giving any port number because if you don't mention any port number, default port numbers will be taken. If you don't maintain the port number. By default port numbers will be taken. So what are the default port numbers that we have? For HTTP, it is 80. For HTTPS, it is 443. Like this, the default port numbers are there. If you are not mentioning the port number, default port numbers will be applied. But generally, if you are trying to define a URL, what should you do? You have to define port number. We have to define the port number, right, boss? So host name, your server name or your domain name, followed by port number, followed by path of your file. Path of your file. When you say path of your file, what is the resource you want to access? What is the resource you want to access? Right. Now when you are looking at this, I have an example. Look at the example. HTTP www.satishmala.com/integration.html. In this, HTTP is a protocol. www.satishmala.com is a host name. Port number is 80, and integration.html is the name of the resource. Now what is the port number? 80. Okay. Similarly, what is the resource name? Integration.html. Similarly, we are going for next one. So what is this? FTP, ftp.org.docs.test.txt. In this, what is the protocol? FTP is the protocol. What is the domain name? Your ftp.org, then docs, test.txt. Your FTP also has a default port number, right? Mail to your protocol user at the rate of test101.com domain. Are you getting more point here? Are you getting more point here? So these are the URLs. When you are going for the URLs, then we have URL. These two are actually URL. Okay, this is a URL. Now let us go to the next one. It's a URL. Other one is what? URL. URL stands for Uniform Resource Namespace. Now based on the namespace, we are going to identify the resource. The namespace is given. Like let's say it's called Satish. Which is Satish? Now we have a classes. I told process.plugin. Where is the process.plugin? What is the process? Process is a namespace. Plugin is a interface. Now I told database.batchable. Database is a namespace. Batchable is a name of the interface. Now we got messaging.single email message. Messaging is a namespace. Single email message is a name of the class. So we are going to use the namespace for identifying the names. URL. URL stands for Uniform Resource Name, and we use the URL. What is the URL here? Look at this. URL. For the namespace, ISBN code. So every book will have some ISBN code. When you purchase a book, every book will have ISBN code. So URL namespace. The namespace is ISBN. The name of the resource is 04516 also. Here also we got. If you look at this, namespace is news. The news what we have? soc.culture.singapore. Now the namespace. What is the namespace? SOC in that culture.singapore. So they are going to identify based on what? URL. But generally we are going to use URI or URL. URL will have protocol. URL will not have protocol. URL will have protocol. URL will not have protocol. Simple to understand whether it's a URL or URL. URL will have a protocol. URL will not have a protocol. This is a simple statement to understand whether it's a URL or a URL. Every URL and every URL is a URI. So every URL is a URI. Every URI is not a URI. Because URI can be a URL or URL. Every URL is a URI. Every URL is a URI. Every URI is not a URL. Every URI is not a URL. Am I clear? So both of them are subparts of URI. Uniform Resource Identifier. What is the URI? Uniform Resource Identifier. Right? So what are the two specifications we have? URI can be a URL or URI can be a URL. Right? The same hard copy I have given you. The same thing is mentioned on your hard copy. Right? This is the basic idea about your URL. Now we'll try to understand the second part of the story. My second part of the story is what is this HTTP protocol? What is this HTTP protocol and how it can be used? So HTTP is a very popular protocol which is used for exchanging the data between the systems or communicating. What type of data that HTTP can support? HTTP can support any type of data. HTTP can be used to exchange any type of data unless both the systems agree to it. Unless both the systems agree to do. So the HTTP can be used to exchange any format of your data. Now when you want to understand what is this HTTP, what is this HTTP protocol, we need to understand three basic reasons for HTTP. HTTP protocol is an application layer protocol. We have OSA model, right? Transport layer, network layer, application layer, like that. So in the OSA model, your HTTP is used for application layer protocol. It is for application layer communication. Application layer communication. Application layer protocol. Application layer communication. In the OSA model, your HTTP will fall under application layer. Your HTTP falls under application layer protocol for communicating between the systems to exchange the data. Fine. Now basically, HTTP will be running on, HTTP is a TCP/IP based protocol. HTTP is a TCP/IP based protocol. The moment I say it is going to use TCP/IP protocol, we need to understand three basic reasons. One, every HTTP protocol is a stateless protocol. It is a stateless protocol, sessionless protocol, and it can exchange any format of data. What are the 3 points that we need to understand? HTTP is a stateless protocol, sessionless protocol, and it can exchange any format of data until both systems agree to do. So let us understand what is the stateful interface, what is stateless, what is stateful, what is stateless, what is connectionful, what is connectionless. Listen to the format. Every HTTP protocol is a connectionless protocol. I have a client and server. This is a client. Client and server. Now look at this. Client is making a request to the server. Client is making a request to the server. Boss, when a client makes a request to the server will receive a request. Once the server receives your request, what it is going to do? The moment the server receives your request, server is going to disconnect your connection. The moment the server understands what you are asking, what the server will do? The server will disconnect your request. Whatever the request is there, the request is disconnected. Whatever the client is requesting, when a client requests any data from the server, make a request to the server. Once the server receives your request, it will disconnect the request. Whatever the request you have sent, the request is disconnected. You send a request to me. The moment I receive the request, then what I am doing? I am disconnecting the request. Disconnect the request. Then server will process the logic. Once the request is understood, server will run the logic. Once the server run the logic, it finally want to give some output. When finally it want to give output, server will establish a connection with the client. So who is going to establish a connection? Server will re-establish the connection with the client. So whatever the client request is there, when I received a client request, I disconnected the connection. So the moment I disconnected, server start running the logic. Once the server is processing the logic, when the server want to give the response back, server will establish a connection to the client again. So once it is established a connection, then it is going to give response back to the client. Response. So the moment the server receives your request, what it is doing? Connection is removed. There is no more connection between the client and server. Once I receive a request, the server will remove the connection and start processing this logic. That is the reason it is called connectionless protocol. Am I clear with this? When a client sends a request to the server, when the server receives the request, it will disconnect the connection, start processing the logic. Once the logic is completed, server will re-establish the connection to the client, then it sends the response back to the client. That's the reason it is called connectionless protocol. HTTP is a connectionless protocol. Am I clear with this? Okay. Now, this is the first example. Then I told HTTP is also called stateless protocol. So what do you mean by stateless protocol? Let us see. When I say stateless protocol, client requested a page. Client requested a page. Client told requested a page. This is my username, password. This is username, password. Give me page number 1. When I give page number 1, server give a response and give you page number 1. Once the server give you page number 1, whatever the connection that is established here, that is removed. Whatever the connection that is established, that is removed. Now, again a client is requesting, boss, can you give me page number 1? The server asks, who are you? Because the communication what you establish with me, that will be helpful for only one transaction. I requested, once again I will repeat the point, listen to the point. So I entered my username, password. Once I entered my username, password, then what happened? Then server recognized your username, password and told your connection is established. Your connection is established, what do you want? Your connection is established, what do you want? The client told, I want page number 1. I want Visual Force page number 1. He told, I need Visual Force page number 1. Then server will take the request, send back the response. Boss, take this page number 1. Take this page number 1. Then once the server gave a response back to the client, then what happened? Whatever the connection that is there, that is removed. Again, client is asking, can you send me page number 2? When the client asks, can you send me page number 2? They ask you, who are you? Who are you? Again, what should I do? Enter my username, password or my credentials or a key that says, yes, Satish, I recognize you. What do you want? Page number 2. Fine, take this page number 2. Then again I told, can you give me page number 3? It asks you, who are you? Again, I am going to give my key. Satish, I recognize you. What do you want? Page number 3. Take this page number 3. Can you give me page number 4? Again, who are you? So what is this? Whatever. Both the systems are connected until the transaction is completed. Once the transaction is completed, once the request and response format is completed, the connection is lost. Both of them cannot recognize each other. Both of them will not recognize each other. So every time I want to request some data from the server, every time I have to prove myself who I am and take the data. So if I prove myself, I can make one request. Once the response comes back to you, connection is lost. Again, if I want, I have to make one more connection. Are you clear about this? So this is what? Stateless protocol. It is what? Stateless protocol. HTTP is a stateless protocol. It will not remember the previous transaction that happened. Every request you make is a new transaction. Every request that you make is a new transaction. Every request that you make is a new transaction. Am I clear? So HTTP is a stateless protocol and sessionless protocol. HTTP is a connectionless protocol, stateless protocol, and this is used to exchange any format of data between the system. This is used to exchange any format of the data between the system. Fine. Good. Then, I hope I am clear with this point, sir. HTTP, what is HTTP, what is connectionless, what is stateless. Then, in the HTTP, when you go with HTTP, the version will be like this. Major version, dot minor version. The HTTP will be having a version in the form of HTTP major dot minor. So we have 1.0. We have 1.1. We have 1.0, 1.1. So what is the difference between this HTTP 1.0 and 1.1? What is the difference between 1.0 and 1.1? So listen to the format. Now in the Salesforce, you are requesting the pages, right? When you are requesting the pages, it is HTTPS api.salesforce.com/page. What type of request you are making? HTTP request only. But every time are you entering your username password? Every time you are entering username password for every page, I want page 1, take my username password. I want page 2, take my username password. Are you entering? No. But still how they are running? Because HTTP 1.1 maintains your connection. HTTP 1.1 maintains your connection. When you say HTTP 1.0, you made a request to me. I give a response. One request. Right. Every request. Okay, when you make a request, connection is established. Then when your response comes, connection is lost. This connection is lost. Again, I want to request something. Again, make a request. They send you a response. Again, what? Connection is lost. So every request, for every request we require, for HTTP, for every request we require one connection. For every request we require one connection. You are making a request, one connection. Once the response comes back, connection close. Again requesting, connection. Once the response comes back, close. Every request requires one connection. But when you take HTTPS, it is only one connection. We can make multiple requests. So what happened? I entered here my username password. I entered my username password. Connection is established. Then make a request. Make a request. Send a response back. Again make a request. Again send a response. So am I making a new connection every time? The same connection is used. With the same connection we are making number of requests. With the same connection we can make number of requests using HTTP 1.1. If it is HTTP 1.0, one request, one connection. HTTP 1.1, one connection, number of requests. In HTTP 1.0, one connection, one request. In HTTP 1.1, one connection, number of requests. That is the difference between HTTP 1.1 and 1.0. Now tell me, when you are opening your Salesforce from the browser, is it 1.0 or 1.1? Why is it 1.1? We are establishing one connection. We keep on requesting whatever the page we want. Right? So it is 1.1. Are you clear about it? One connection, multiple requests. 1.1. 1.0, one connection, one request. 1.0. I hope you are clear. So what is a port number? What is a port number? What is a HTTP? What is a stateless? What is a connectionless? What is HTTP 1.0? What is HTTP 1.1? Right? I hope I am good with this. Right. Now let us understand the next format of the things. When both the systems want to communicate, if two systems want to communicate, what will be the format? If two systems want to communicate, client server. If they want to communicate, they need a medium. What is this medium? This medium is nothing but protocol. If we both of us want to talk to each other, we agree to some terms and conditions. Boss, I will speak in English. You also speak in English. I will talk first. You respond next. You talk next. I will respond next. This is the common understanding. So what is that? If two systems want to communicate, they require a medium. What is that medium? Protocol. What is the medium? Set of rules are nothing but protocol. On the protocol, you are making a request. Whatever the request you want to send, send that request in the form of HTTP. Whatever the request you want to send, create that request in the form of HTTP request message. Because whatever you are sending, I should understand. If you keep on sending like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I should know what it is. So, boss, if you send me a request, if I don't understand, there is no use for it. So, we'll make a common structure. Whenever you want to make a request, send the request in the following format. Whenever I am going to send a response, I am going to send the response in this format. Then you understand where is your response body, what is asking, from where we are getting. So both of us want to communicate, let us make a set of rules. Whenever I want to request anything, I will send my request in this format. Whenever you want to send any response, send the response in this format. This is a common understanding for the HTTP. So when you make a request, server will send a response. How the response will come? Whatever the response it is sending, it has to send in the form of HTTP response message. Whatever the response you want to send, it is sending in the response message. HTTP response message. Over the protocol of HTTP, we are sending and receiving the response. Request message and HTTP response message. Why? Because you are communicating over HTTP protocol. As you are trying to communicate over the HTTP protocol, whatever the request you are trying to send me in the form of HTTP request format. Whatever the response you want to send me, send the response in the form of HTTP response format. This is what they came to understand. Now, we want to understand how this request will be there. What is the format of this request? How to define this format? So let us see this. We want to understand how to see this. Now, when the two systems want to communicate with each other, your HTTP message will be in this format. When two systems want to communicate with each other, the two systems will send a message in this format. So the message will have header, blank line, which will separate the header and body. Header message in between one blank line to separate the header and body, followed by body. So your HTTP message will contain what? Header, blank space or blank line, followed by body. So every request message, response message will be the same format. What is the format? Request header, your message header, blank space or blank line, followed by message body. Okay, very good. Now in this case, I want to know how the request message will be there. If you are trying to send a request message, HTTP request message, the request message will be like this. How the request message is going to be? Request message header separated by blank line, request message body. So what are the three things that we have? Request header, request body. Request header we have, request body. Request header separated by blank, request body. Now, in the request header, whatever the first line we have, in the request header, whatever the first line we have, that is called request line. The first line in the message will say what? Request line. Request line is to which server you are making a request, what is the resource you are asking, what type of request is this, is it a GET request, POST request, what type of request is this, and what is the version of your HTTP. So the first line says, what is the first line? Request line. And the remaining part is called request header, the blank space and body. When you take HTTP request, the message may contain the body or not, it's an optional. Every request will not have body. Every request will not have body. Every response will not have body. It is not necessary that every request will have a body part. It is not necessary that every response will have a body, but header is a must. Let it be a request or a response, header is a must. Let it be a request or a response, header is a must. Body is an optional part. Body is a optional part. Body is an optional, but the header is a must. Header is a must. I will tell you when the header is required, when the body is required. Okay. Let us go to this. What is the first line that we have? Request line. When you go to the request line, look at the format. The request line will be like this. When you look at the request line, what is the request line? In the request line, the first line, the first one. What is the first one you are finding? We have first line. What is the first line that we have? In the request line, what is the first line that we have? So, the first line. In the first line, what do we have? Get. When is a get? What is the get? What type of request is this? What type of request is this? Is it a request format? Is it a get? Is it a post? Is it a put? What type of request is this? What type of request? This will say what? Type of request. What are the possible options? Get, post, delete, put, trace. The next you are finding it. What is this? This is the resource URL. This is the resource URL. What is this? Resource. Whatever the resource you are trying to request, the resource is represented by this URL. The URL indicates the resource. Now what is this type of protocol you are using? The type of protocol, the protocol type what you are trying to use is given by HTTP 1.1. So what are the format? What is the format? Let me explain one more time. So what is this format here? Get. This get indicates what? Method. What type of method is this? And this indicates what? Resource. What type of resource? What is the resource location or path? Then what is the third one we have? It's the protocol. Which version of protocol you are using? So all three together it is called as what? This complete set now together is called request. So in the request line what we have? Method, URL of the resource and your protocol. All the three together is a request line. Then in the header indicates the information about the message format, what you are requesting, what type of response you are expecting, what type of language you are expecting, what type of encoding you are looking. This type of information will be there. Request format. So in the header part, what we are going to give? When you take a header part, it's going to be in the form of map. Your header part is going to be in the form of what? Map. Your header part is going to be in the form of map. When it's a map, it is a key value pair. In the map, it is going to be a key value pair. What are the keys we have? What is the key we have? What is the accept? Are you able to hear me now? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Now, so this is a key value pair. When is a key value pair? Key is a accept. When is a accept? I'll give you a couple of information. Accept means I am making a request to the server. Boss, I want the integration nodes. Now they are asking, in which format you want your nodes? Now I want to take in the form of PDF. Somebody say in the form of text. Somebody say in the form of document. Somebody say in the form of image. Now accept. Accept will tell you in which format you are expecting the response from the server. You are making a request to the server. From server, what type of response you are expecting? Are you expecting the response in the form of image? Are you expecting the response in the form of text? Are you expecting the response in the form of document or PDF? That we are going to get. So it's a media type. Accept is the media type in which we are trying to accept the request, accept the response. Accept language. The content of the response should be in which format of which language. Accept encoding. When it's encoding, your data has to be encrypted. While exchanging the data. So what format of encryption? That's a compression format. User agent, from which browser you are making. Content length of your request. So like this, some of the parameters are there in the header. So when you take a request message, first line is request line, remaining lines are request header. Then remaining part space followed by body. Body can be any one of the format I told you. Based on the format what you mentioned, we get the corresponding body. This is what HTTP. Now let me give you some sample. Now response. When you look at the response, let us see. You are sending a request. Now we are going to get a response. What is the format in which we are getting the response? When you say response, response header, response body blank. So we got header, blank and body. In this case, first line of the response says status line. The first line is also called as status line. In the request, what we call? In the request, we call request line. In the response we call status line. It says whether the request what you made is a successful or a failure. Is it a success or a failure? What is the protocol you are using? Status. Status line says whether the request is a success or a failure. Sometimes you get 200, sometimes you get 404, sometimes you get 500, sometimes you get 303, sometimes you get sometimes you get 101, 102. So what is the status? So the first line in the response is status. Remaining lines are called response headers and response body. For understanding, let me take one quick example. So this is my response what I received. When I receive the response, what is the first line is called? Status line. This is what? Status line. When is the status line? In the status line, what is the first one? Protocol. What is the protocol you are using? What is the protocol you are using? What is the protocol you are using? The next one, what is it? Status 200. It is a status code. It is a status code. 200 is the status code. OK is what? Message which conveys the status. Status message. So 200 is called status message. Status message. P stands for protocol. The first line, what is the protocol you are using? Which version of protocol you are using? Then what is the status code? What is the status message? The message which indicates status code. Right. This is called as what? This is called as what? This is called as status line. Okay. Then remaining part of the story is called as body part of the message. This is the header part. What is this? Header part. Now, in which format the response is coming? Content type. In which format the response is coming? Content type, text and HTML. Boss, I am sending the response in the form of text and HTML. Content type, text and HTML. So, we got here. Connection close. This is one of the key points. I'll tell you. Connection close. Listen carefully. Connection close. I made a request to you. You are using HTTP 1.0. Let us assume we are using HTTP 1.0. I made a request to you. You send a response to me. Automatically what happened? Connection is closed. But even after getting the response, I want to keep my connection live. I want to make the connection persistent, generally called persistence. You made a request, I got a response. Once the response comes, connection is closed. But if you are using HTTP 1.1, what happened? Made a request, response came, still the connection is live. Still the connection is not closed, still it's live. You can take the request. So this indicates whether the connection is closed or live. So we have to keep live or closed. The connection is what? Closed. When the connection is closed, 1.1 they said, boss, I will be alive. But what did they do? Once you made a request, I am sending a response, I am closing the connection. If you don't specify anything, response will be there. But what is that? You have to decide whether the connection should be live or closed. When you are using 1.1, you are making connection. When I am giving back the response, do you want the connection to be live still? Make it live. Live connection. No, connection live. Connection live. No, I want to close it. Keep the status equal to close. Right. Some of the attributes you are seeing. Now, what is the length of your response? 35. When it was modified. So, some basic information. We'll see them as per our requirement. So, basically, as of now, three things are very important for us. We are going to use content type. What format of request you are sending? Is it a JSON format, XML format, text format? What format of content type? When you are sending a response, what format of response you are sending? Right. Now, when a client want to request and say, I want the response in the form of JSON only, then you have to say what? Accept JSON format. Then your server is supposed to send your response in the form of JSON. When I say JSON accept, in which format you want the server to send the response, that should be accept. In which format you are sending? Content type. In which format you are sending? Content type. Do you want to compress encoding? Right. Do you want the connection to be live or close connection? The remaining things are okay. Some attributes which we frequently don't use it. Alright, Amma. People have got a message, request message, response message here. Right? Every HTTP message is going to have header, blank space, body. Header, blank space, body. Is the body is mandatory for everyone? Body is not mandatory, but header is mandatory. Header is mandatory. So this is